Hi there, and welcome back to Clarkenomics. Today in this video, we're going to talk about firms' costs. So jumping right into it, we can start describing cost by talking about marginal cost. Marginal is always from each additional unit of doing something. So in this case, we're talking about the additional cost of producing each unit, right? Because essentially, every time a firm wants to produce more of something, it's going to cost the company money, right? They have to use inputs, and what we also call inputs factors, and firms are the buyers of factors. So if they want to increase production, they can, but it's going to cost them to do that. And so marginal cost is the cost of producing the next unit of something. Not all of the units of something, that would be total, but just the next one. So to look at an example, we can talk about Pete's Pizzas. And on the right side of the screen, you see a table, how many pizza produced, right? So this is each particular pizza. And what is going to be Pete's marginal cost of producing just that pizza? So let's imagine that for the first pizza, it cost Pete $5 to produce that first pizza. So that is not how much revenue he's getting from that pizza. That's how much it costs him to make that pizza, to buy the land, labor, capital that he needs to produce that pizza. The second pizza, let's imagine that one costs him $10 to produce. So that one is actually the second pizza is more expensive for him to produce. If you're wondering why, don't get too hung up on that. We will come back to that in a bit. But we can imagine that the third pizza costs him $15 to produce, and the fourth costs 20, and the fifth pizza costs 25, and the sixth pizza costs 30. I just made it linear just to make it nice and tidy. It doesn't have to be linear, but typically when we look at a firm, the more they produce, the cost of producing each unit is going to keep going up. And we'll talk about why 2 slides from now. But before we get to that, let's just graph this information. So if we did a graph, we'd have marginal cost on the y-axis, we'd have quantity produced on the x, and again, that first pizza cost $5 to produce. The second pizza cost $10 to produce, the third cost 15, and so on and so forth. So as Pete produces more pizza, the cost of producing each pizza rises and rises and rises. So why is that? Why does a marginal cost curve slope upwards like that? Because that's something they do. They slope upward. Well, this is a little complicated to explain, but just to keep it nice and simple, it's due to something called diminishing returns to input. So every time Pete, hires a worker, let's say, they're less productive. So as Pete wants to produce more pizza, he's going to need more chefs to produce pizza. So imagine, if you will, that we had one chef. There he is. And that first chef that Pete hires is able to produce 3 pizzas. He's very effective. But then Pete says, okay, let's hire a second chef. There's our second chef. This chef is only able to produce 2 pizzas. Now, why is that? Well, there could be tons of reasons. Maybe there's limited oven space, right? And although it is nice to have a second chef there, the oven can only fit, like, let's say 5 pizzas or something like that. And so even though you're hiring more workers, the second worker, the second chef here, is not going to be as productive as the previous chef. That's called diminishing returns to input. Let's say Pete wants to hire another chef. There's our third chef, but this third chef is only able to add 1 marginal pizza. Maybe now the kitchen is so crowded that all these chefs are kind of bumping into each other. They don't have space to operate, or they have a fixed amount of oven space, like we said. That's going to create a situation where hiring more workers, unfortunately, each one adds less and less input. But we're going to assume that you have to pay them all the same regardless. So maybe that first chef makes 20 bucks an hour, the second one makes 20 bucks an hour, the third one makes 20 bucks an hour, but the third chef is way less productive. But since they each get paid the same amount of money, as Pete produces more pizza, the cost of producing each unit is going to keep rising. So that is the short explanation of why a marginal cost curve slopes upwards. So it's not completely necessary that you understand that to understand the stuff that we're going to do in the future, but that's just a brief explanation of why marginal cost curves slope upwards. It's all about diminishing returns to input. So with that information, with the marginal cost information, we can now look at the total cost of producing pizzas, and total is the cost of producing all units, not just the next unit, but all units. So for Pete's Pizza, if the marginal cost of the first pizza is 5, Pete's total cost of producing one pizza is, of course, 5. But the second pizza now adds $10 worth of cost, bringing the total cost of producing 2 pizzas up to 15. That third pizza costs $15 to produce, bringing the total cost from 15 up to 30. Fourth pizza costs $20 to produce, bringing our total cost up to 50. Add 25, total cost becomes 75. Add $30, total cost becomes $105. So as Pete produces more pizza, the total cost of producing pizzas rises, but not in a linear way, right? Because the slope is ever increasing. So let's take a look at that actually in a graph right here. So the total cost of producing one pizza, again, was 5, and then 15, and then 30. You can see that the slope here, right, is less than the slope here. And as we continue that, the slope is going to get steeper and steeper and even steeper. It's going to get more expensive to produce pizzas as he produces more of them. And so a total cost curve comes from those marginal values. So that explains a little bit about firm costs. Thank you for watching.